I'd like to start off this video by saying I have a new computer. It's quite good, and my workflow for my personal YouTube channel, along with the others that I run like TF2 of POV, will be much more efficient now. So be on the lookout for much more content over the rest of this summer.
Kevin, I don't even almost care. What are your opinions about the update for Team Fortress 2?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked a more trebly version of myself. I never really understood the opinions on this update thing that, like, a lot of people do, especially a lot of smaller YouTubers do, and they just throw it up within a day of the update. Like, at that stage, odds are that your opinion is rather underdeveloped, unless there's, like, something seriously stupid that was added to the game. Medi guns now retain Ubercharge on death of the medic. There's a long list of reasons this shouldn't ever be a thing, but I'll keep it to one simple one. Yeah, they added that to the game. But I'll get to that. First off, the biggest change, in my opinion at least, the weapon pickup mechanics. They're cool in theory, but the fact that they keep their clips and Ubercharges is kind of crazy to me. This mid-fight from a recent scrim is a perfect example of that. You'll see my team solidifying the mid-win with some good frags. So the other team transitioned into a we should probably just kill their medic mode. And they did that. They got the important frag on Pascal, but Pascal dropped her medigun. And Photon, the soldier that killed her, dropped his original. This means that Pascal's medigun is sitting at 70% on the mid that we just won and are now holding, and I have 8 rockets to defend it with. So, after a little bit, she picks it up again, and we're able to push into second with this huge Uber advantage that we have for no particular reason. I get the medic and make space, and then my team captures the point fairly easily, as expected. And, I mean, for nothing. This change gives us basically a huge advantage at no cost. It turned what could and would have been a really close round, a really close and fun round, into one that was basically over before it started. Another issue is the increased risk for things like counter-sacking. Here's an example from the same scrim. Their sniper gets a pick on our demo because they're defending last, they typically won't push on just that one pick if both teams have Uber, which we did. So it's standard for them to send in a sack for the medic. Even if the sack dies without getting our medic, it's hard for us to push back because it's still 5v5 and the defending team typically has an advantage in even fights like that. So the soldier sacks in for the medic and doesn't get the Uber force, which is what typically happens. But now I once again have 8 rockets with which I can spam stuff with. So this change in the game mechanic basically makes it more difficult to push out of a last situation, which nobody wants because lasts are already pretty difficult to push out of. So how can Valve fix this part of the update? I quite like the ability to pick up weapons, and I'd rather them not remove it. It makes some things super interesting, and it makes certain weapons much more viable than they would have been without it. For example, the Liberty Launcher, using it at mid to just jump around and distract the enemy team as a roamer. And then if your team is successful, you can just switch to the stock launcher. The answer is pretty simple. Weapons shouldn't keep their clip or Ubercharge once dropped. Having the ability to spam 8 rockets or 16 stickies, dear goodness. I didn't even think about that. Having those abilities is not good for either a casual game or a competitive game, which is what I think Valve was seriously gearing this update towards. Aside from that, I wish they would make it to where blast weapons can knock around the dropped weapons like they used to. It would make for some pretty neat situations. I mean, I can already move a weapon to where I want it, so why not just make it a little bit easier and cooler looking? It could set the game apart a little bit. Now, moving on to the weapon changes, I'm going to go through one by one with each class and kind of share my opinions on the class as a whole, not as the weapons as individuals for the most part, but how the classes are affected. For the Scout, they changed the pocket pistol to something that is no longer a straight upgrade in 6v6, which is cool, but I still think it's pretty overpowered. Everything else that they changed is small and pretty much for the better, so good on that. For the Soldier, my old favorite rocket launcher, the Liberty Launcher, is now fun again. Medics can heal and Uber people with their equalizers out, which is awesome. The airstrike is good now, like even better than it was before. The black box finally makes sense. It got nerfed a little bit. They fixed the battalion's backup rocket jumping. It's really good. The changes they made don't do too much to make Soldier more powerful than it was before, if I'm being honest. They simply make the class like more fun to play. It's perfect. It's a perfect update for the Soldier. I can honestly say that I think just about every Soldier weapon is now balanced. Some are slightly OP and some are slightly UP, but for the most part, they're very balanced. The only weapon that I can think of right now that the Soldier has that is a little overpowered is the whip. But other than that, kudos Valve. It's really good. For the Pyro class, they buffed what was already pretty much my favorite weapon that the Pyro had. The detonator is even more fun now than it was before. Scorch Shot is really powerful too, and I'm still hoping for the day that Valve nerfs how players get thrown around from the air blast, but that's pretty much a pipe dream at this point, so I'm just going to take what I get and be happy with it. For the Demo Man, aside from some really scary moments that made me think the demo would be broken forever again, which was the no fall off on sticky damage that was there at the initial release of this update. Aside from that, everything looks good. The Quickie Bomb buff is good, and it is a viable weapon now. And they fixed the lock and load. The lock and load's still really powerful, but it will no longer one-shot things without crit, so I'm happy with that. Heavy got some good buffs, but I think taking less damage while spun up on the Natasha, and especially on the Brass Beast, is kind of silly. Heavies have always been more vulnerable when spun up, and I always thought that was a great, like, subtle mechanic of the game. So I guess it'll be neat to see how this plays out. On NG, I'm so absolutely happy that Valve made Engineer more fun. I was working on a video about my qualms with the Engineer class, and Valve fixed all of them before I finished the video. I was going to say that I was frustrated by the fact that you basically had two choices while playing Engineer. You played with stupid broken unlocks, or you played an incredibly passive, dull class. Like, don't get me wrong, Engineer could be really fun before the update, but it certainly wasn't typical for most people, if that makes sense. With increased build speed on the typically nest-associated weapons and the nerfs on the older broken weapons, Engineer has gone from a class that I used to have like a love-hate relationship with to a class I enjoy much more, even though I still am upset that the Thompson can still deplete Ubercharge, even if it was nerfed a little bit. For Medic, they changed the Vaccinator to a more fair, fun weapon, so I'll definitely be playing with that in pubs more. They also nerfed one of the last objectively straight upgrade weapons in the game, which is awesome, and I'm happy they did that. We're down to just a couple now. For Sniper, the P-Gun makes me covered in P more often, and I am not into that. Other than that, they left the class pretty much unchanged. For Spy, I really like that they made Spy more of a spy again, rather than a, how many times can I pretend to die before there's not metal left on the map simulation? You know, like, the Deadringer got some seriously good nerfs, and some cool new mechanics too, so it's still viable, it's just less silly. The lack of a Diamondback nerf is the only thing that leaves me a little bit puzzled. It still rewards players hugely for doing things that every spy should be doing regardless. An example of a nerf that would make the Diamondback work would be reducing the damage penalty slightly and making crits change to, like, mini-crits? Something like that. I don't know. But it's still really, really, it's stupid powerful right now. It's one of the last legitimately broken weapons in the game, in my opinion. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Okay, yeah, enough about the stupid weapons, Kevin. No one cares. What about the cosmetics? I don't particularly care one way or another about them. Some of them look neat, some of them look really ugly. People getting mad about the skins are crazy, though. If you don't like the skins, just join me over in DX8 land. It's nice over here. If you think it ruins the feel of the TF2-diverse, then you're like 5 years late and you need to get over yourself. I mean, there's no reason to dislike the skins, though. I'd really like to talk about the contract portion of the update. It honestly makes pubbing fun for me again. I love getting my contract and getting into the pub and trying super hard. It's something that deep down I've missed for a long time now, and I'm glad I have a reason to do it again. I especially look forward to when the challengers get a little bit harder. Like, I finished my spy contract in just over 6 minutes, and I completed my longest contract in just under an hour. Like, the Suijin round win contracts are the worst. Anyways, it's awesome, and I love it, and I hope that there are more things like it in the future. Overall, this update shows that the TF2 team is still invested in the game. The skins are neat, the maps are beautiful, and I can honestly say that the weapon changes make me very excited about how in-game matchmaking may go down. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about my video and opinions, as well as just the update itself. Feel free to post them in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, well, oatmeal and carrots aren't my particular favorite thing, but, I mean, I can respect that you're buying them. Okay, I'm in the middle of playing video games!